The lights of Kepler station stretched out like stars in the darkness of space. Ships from 100 different worlds docked at its massive arms every day. Traders, diplomats, and warriors from across the galaxy walked its wide corridors. But today everyone was talking about the same thing. The maze. Yun walked slowly through the central plaza, his white cane tapping against the metal floor. The sounds around him told him everything he needed to know. Worried whispers in dozen different languages, the heavy footsteps of security guards, the nervous clicking that meant the insect-like Vel were agitated. "Another one went in yesterday," said Nari, walking beside him. Her voice was tight with concern. "A Keth warrior. They say he was one of their best." Hyun nodded but said nothing. He had heard the screaming 3 days ago. Everyone on the station had heard it. The sound had echoed through the ventilation systems for hours before it finally stopped. They reached the observation deck that overlooked the maze chamber. Hyun could not see it, but he could feel it. The thing was alive in a way that made his skin crawl. It pulsed with a rhythm like a heartbeat. The air around it felt thick and wrong. "Describe it to me again," he said quietly. Nari sighed. She had done this many times before, but she knew why he kept asking. "It looks like a giant brain made of metal and flesh. The walls are covered in tubes that glow with green light. The entrance is about 3 meters high. There are no windows. Once someone goes in, we cannot see them anymore. And the bodies? None. Have ever come out." Below them a crowd had gathered. Alien dignitaries from the Council of Voices stood in their ceremonial robes. Their leader, a tall being with purple skin and 4 arms, was speaking in the common tongue. "For 300 years, the greatest champions of our civilizations have entered the Nexus maze. Warriors with strength to crush mountains. Scholars, with minds that could solve any puzzle. Mystics who could read thoughts across star systems. All have failed," the crowd murmured. Fear and excitement mixed in the air like a bad smell. "We have lost too many," the council leader continued. "If no one can claim the heart of the maze within 30 days, we will destroy it. This madness must end." Yun listened to the gasps and arguments that followed. Some aliens wanted more time. Others demanded the maze be destroyed immediately. A few still believed someone could succeed where all others had failed. "What do you think is really in there?" Nari asked. "Something lonely," Yun said. "Something that has been waiting a very long time." Commander Day approached them. His military boots made sharp sounds on the deck plating. "Yun, the council wants to speak with you. They need Earth's official position on the maze situation." Yun turned toward the sound of his voice. Day was a good man, but he thought like a soldier. Everything was either a threat to be eliminated or a resource to be claimed. "What is Earth's position?" Hyun asked. "Honestly, most people back home think this whole thing is a waste of time. An ancient alien puzzle box that kills anyone stupid enough to try solving it. They want us to stay out of it." "And you?" Day was quiet for a moment. "I think there might be something valuable in there. The aliens would not guard it so carefully if it was worthless. But I also think we should let them destroy it. Too many good people have died already." They made their way to the council chambers. The room was designed to accommodate dozens of different alien species. Some breathed different gases. Others could not tolerate certain light frequencies. The environmental controls worked overtime to keep everyone comfortable. Hyun took his seat at the human delegation table. Around him he could hear the representatives of the major galactic powers, the Keth Empire, still mourning their lost warrior, the Silicon Collective, whose machine minds had calculated a 0% chance of success, the mysterious Void Walkers, who rarely spoke but observed everything. "The human position is noted," said the council leader when Hyun stated Earth's neutrality. "However, we must ask all species to respect our final decision. In 30 days, the maze will be destroyed if no one claims its heart." A Keth delegate stood up. Their voice was like grinding stone. "You cannot destroy it. The knowledge inside could advance our civilizations by thousands of years. The power could defend us against the dark things that move between stars." Then send another of your warriors, challenged a representative of the crystal hierarchy. Send 100. They will all die just like the others. The argument that followed was predictable. The same accusations, the same desperate proposals, the same fear disguised as bravado. Hyun had heard it all before in different forms throughout his career as a diplomat. But something else caught his attention. A small sound, almost lost in the chaos of alien voices. It was coming from the direction of the maze chamber, carried through the station's ventilation system. A humming. Soft and rhythmic like a lullaby. "Nari," he whispered. "Do you hear that?" She listened carefully. Her training as a former soldier had given her sharp ears. After a moment, she nodded. "Yes, it sounds like singing." The council meeting dragged on for hours. Plans were proposed and rejected. Threats were made and withdrawn. In the end, nothing changed. 30 days remained. After that, the maze would be destroyed. As they walked back to their quarters, Hyun was unusually quiet. Nari had learned to recognize his thinking mood over the years they had worked together. "You are planning something stupid, are not you?" she said. Hyun stopped walking. Around them, the station hummed with its usual activity. Aliens and humans went about their business, but he could still hear that soft humming underneath it all. The maze was calling to something, or someone. The others all went in as conquerors, he said finally. Warriors looking for a battle to win, scholars looking for a puzzle to solve, mystics looking for power to claim. What if that is the problem? What do you mean? Hyun turned toward her, though his blind eyes could not meet hers. What if the maze is not a test to be passed, but a question to be answered? What if it does not want to be conquered, but understood? Nari felt a chill run down her spine. She had seen that look on his face before, right before he did something that everyone else thought was impossible. "Hyun, no. You cannot be thinking of going in there." "Why not?" "Because you are blind. Because you are not a warrior or a scholar. Or a mystic. Because everyone who goes in there dies." Hyun smiled sadly. "Maybe that is exactly why it has to be me." The humming from the maze seemed to grow a little louder, as if it had heard him and approved. 23 days remained. The station felt different now, heavier somehow. The usual bustle of trade and diplomacy had slowed to a worried whisper. Everyone knew the deadline was approaching, and no one believed anyone would succeed. Hyun sat, in the medical bay, listening to Dr. Jin examine the latest casualty. Not dead this time, but close enough. A Vel warrior had stumbled out of the maze entrance after only 10 minutes inside. Her chitinous shell was cracked in dozen places, and her compound eyes stared at nothing. "She keeps repeating the same words," Dr. Jin said quietly. "The walls have teeth, the walls have teeth." The Vel had been famous for her speed and agility. She could move through laser grids without triggering a single beam. But the maze had broken her in minutes. "How many does that make?" Hyun asked. 47 in the past 3 weeks, 32 dead, 15 driven insane. The rest? Dr. Jin paused. The rest are in states we do not have words for. Nari shifted uncomfortably beside Hyun. She had been watching him carefully since their conversation 5 days ago. He had not mentioned entering the maze again, but she knew him too well. He was planning something. The medical bay doors opened with a soft hiss. Commander Day walked in, his face grim. "The Keth sent another champion," he announced. "Went in 2 hours ago." Through the walls, they could already hear the screaming starting. Dr. Jin closed her eyes. "That is the 3rd one this week. What are they trying to prove?" "That they are not afraid," Day said. "That their honor means more than their lives." The usual warrior nonsense. Hyun stood up slowly. "Has anyone asked what the maze wants?" "What do you mean?" Dr. Jin looked confused. "Every challenger goes in with the same goal. Take the heart, claim the power, win the prize. But what if the maze has its own goals? What if it is trying to tell us something?" Day made a sound of disgust. "It is a killing machine, Hyun. Ancient alien tech designed to Murder anyone stupid enough to walk inside, there is nothing to understand. But Dr. Jin looked thoughtful. She was a scientist before anything else, and the idea intrigued her. The bio readings we get from inside are strange. The life signs do not just stop when someone dies. They change, become something else. What kind of something else? I am not sure. The patterns are unlike anything in our databases, almost like the deaths are not endings but transformations. The screaming from the maze chamber grew louder, then suddenly stopped. They all knew what that meant. Another champion had fallen. I need to see the records, Yun said. All of them. Every challenger who went in. I want to know their backgrounds, their abilities, how long they survived. Nari grabbed his arm. Hyun, no. I know what you are thinking, and the answer is no. You do not know what I am thinking. You want to go in there yourself. You think being blind gives you some kind of advantage, but you are wrong. You will die just like all the others. The argument might have continued, but the chamber doors opened again. A group of alien dignitaries entered, led by the four-armed council leader. Behind them walked a young human engineer named Sue. We need to discuss the maze situation, the council leader announced. The timeline has been moved up. What do you mean? Day stepped forward. The maze is becoming more active. Our sensors detect increasing energy levels. Whatever is inside, it grows stronger with each death. We now believe it may be too dangerous to leave intact for 30 more days. Sue nodded nervously. The power readings are off the charts. If this continues, the maze might break containment. It could consume the entire station. Hyun felt his blood go cold. How long do we have? 72 hours, the council leader said. Then we destroy it regardless of the consequences. The room fell silent. 3 days. After 3 centuries of waiting, they had 3 days to solve the impossible puzzle or lose the chance forever. Sir, Sue said hesitantly, I have been studying the historical records like you requested. I found something interesting. She activated a holographic display that Hyun could not see, but the others could. Look at the survival times. The strongest warriors lasted longest, but not by much. The smartest scholars survived based on their intelligence, but they all died anyway. There is a pattern. What pattern? Dr. Jin leaned forward. The maze adapts to each challenger. It gives them exactly the kind of test they expect. Warriors face impossible battles. Scholars face unsolvable puzzles. Psychics face mental attacks they cannot defend against. It is like the maze reads their minds and creates their worst nightmare. Hyun nodded slowly. So the better you are at something, the harder the maze makes it for you. Exactly. Which means someone with no special abilities might have the best chance, Dr. Jin finished. She looked at Hyun with understanding and horror. You really are going to try it. The council leader made a sound like grinding metal. Impossible. A human diplomat with no combat training, no psychic abilities, and no advanced knowledge? You would die in minutes. Maybe, Hyun said calmly. Or maybe that is exactly why I might succeed. Nari stepped between them. This is insane. I will not let you commit suicide. It is not suicide if there is a chance. What chance? You are blind. Yes, Hyun said. I am. I have been my whole life. I learned to navigate the world without seeing it. I learned to listen instead of looking. I learned to understand people by their voices, their breathing, their movements. I learned that sometimes the most important things cannot be seen. He turned toward the council leader. You said the maze reads minds and creates tests based on what it finds. What if it cannot? Read a mind that works differently? What if someone who has never relied on sight could navigate a place where vision means nothing? The alien considered this. Even if your theory is correct, you have no combat skills, no scientific knowledge of the maze's construction, no psychic defenses. No, Hyun agreed. But I have something else. I have spent my entire career helping different species understand each other. I know how to listen, how to find common ground, how to make peace instead of war. Commander Day shook his head. The maze is not something you can negotiate with, Hyun. It is a weapon. Is it? Dr. Jin looked thoughtful again. The bio readings suggest otherwise. The way it transforms the dead rather than simply killing them, the increasing power levels, the fact that it has waited 3 centuries for something. What if it is not a weapon at all? Then what is it? Sue asked. Hyun was quiet for a long moment. Around him he could hear the station's life support systems, humming, the distant sounds of aliens going about their daily lives, and underneath it all that soft singing from the maze chamber. I think it is lonely, he said finally. I think it has been alone for a very long time, and it is trying to find someone who can understand it. The council leader made a sound of disbelief. You base this theory on what evidence? On the fact that it keeps their minds alive after their bodies die. On the fact that it grows stronger with each death, as if it is collecting something. And on the fact that it sings when no one is listening. The room fell silent again. Even Nari stopped arguing. 3 days, Hyun said quietly. If I am wrong, you lose nothing. You are not going to lose anyway. If I am right, if you are right, you might be the first person to walk out of that thing, alive, Dr. Jin finished. The council leader looked around the room, at the desperate faces of scientists and soldiers who had run out of options, at the human diplomat who wanted to risk everything on a theory about loneliness and understanding. The council will consider your request, the alien said finally. But understand this, human Hyun. If you enter the maze and fail, we will not delay the destruction to retrieve your body. In 72 hours, everything ends. Hyun nodded. I understand. As the dignitaries filed out, Nari grabbed his arm again. Promise me something, she said. What? Promise me you know what you are doing. Hyun was quiet for a moment. The singing from the maze seemed a little louder now, a little more urgent. I promise I am going to try. It was not the answer she wanted, but it was the only one he could give. The morning of the final day came too quickly. Hyun stood before the entrance to the maze, feeling the weight of 1,000 eyes upon him. Representatives from every major species had gathered to watch what they believed would be his death. Some had come out of respect, others out of curiosity. Most had come to witness the end of the 300-year mystery. The maze entrance loomed before him like an open mouth. He could not see it, but he could feel its presence. The air around it was warm and humid, carrying scents that reminded him of hospitals and laboratories. Underneath those familiar smells was something else, something ancient and tired. Final systems check, Dr. Jin said, adjusting the monitoring devices attached to his chest. Heart rate steady, brain activity normal. The sensors will let us track your vital signs until you go too deep. Nari stood beside him, her hand resting on his shoulder. She had not spoken much that morning. There was nothing left to say. They both knew this might be goodbye. Remember, Commander Day said gruffly. If things go bad in there, do not try to be a hero. Just run. Get out however you can. Hyun nodded, though he suspected running would not be an option once he went inside. Every other challenger had tried to retreat at some point. None had succeeded. He carried only his white cane and a small water bottle. No weapons, no technology, no protective gear. If his theory was correct, such things would only make him a target. Are you ready? Asked the council leader. Hyun took a deep breath. The singing from within the maze had grown stronger over the past day. It no longer sounded random. There was a pattern to it now, like a song with verses and choruses, like someone trying to communicate. Yes, he said. I am ready. He stepped forward and placed his hand against the entrance. The surface felt warm and slightly wet, like living skin. It pulsed under his touch with that familiar heartbeat rhythm. Good luck, Nari whispered behind him. Hyun smiled and walked into the darkness. The first thing he noticed was the silence. The moment he crossed the threshold, all sound from the outside world disappeared. The worried voices, the humming of the station's systems, even the vibrations from passing ships, all gone. But the maze itself was not quiet. It breathed around him with deep, slow inhalations. Somewhere in the distance, he could hear the soft dripping of liquid and the occasional creak of metal under strain. The floor beneath his feet felt spongy, like walking on thick carpet. His cane tapped against surfaces that seemed to shift and change as he moved. What felt like a wall one moment became an opening the next. "Interesting," he said aloud, just to hear his own voice. The word echoed back to him, but not in the way sound normally bounced off walls. It came back changed, layered with harmonics that had not been there before, as if something was listening and responding. He walked forward slowly, letting his cane guide him. The path curved to the left, then to the right, then split into 3 directions. He chose the middle path, not because it seemed safer, but because it felt more welcoming somehow. That was when the visions started. Most people would have seen them as images, horrifying scenes of past challengers dying in terrible ways. But Hyun experienced them differently. They came to him as sounds, smells, and feelings, the clash of weapons that never connected with their targets, the screams of warriors facing enemies that could not be defeated, the desperate prayers of scholars confronting puzzles with no solutions, the mental anguish of psychics overwhelmed by alien thoughts. But unlike the others, Hyun did not try to fight or solve or understand these experiences. He simply acknowledged them and continued. "Walking, I hear you," he said softly. "You have been alone for a long time." The vision stopped abruptly. In their place came something new, a presence that felt vast and ancient, pressing against the edges of his consciousness, not attacking, but exploring, learning. Most minds would have resisted such contact. The warriors had tried to fight it off. The scholars had attempted to analyze it. The psychics had built mental barriers against it. Hyun did none of these things. Instead, he opened his thoughts and memories, sharing them freely. His childhood learning to navigate without sight. His years studying different languages and cultures. His work as a diplomat, finding common ground between species that had nothing in common except their ability to hate each other. The presence recoiled in surprise, then returned more gently. It was like being touched by something that had forgotten how to be careful with fragile things. Images flowed between them now, not the terrifying visions from before, but true memories. The maze showed him its past, an ancient civilization facing extinction as their son died. Scientists working desperately to preserve their knowledge and culture. The creation of a living repository, designed to find a worthy heir and pass on their legacy. But something had gone wrong. The maze had been programmed to test worthiness through trials of strength, intelligence, and willpower. It could not understand gentleness, compassion, or the simple desire to help rather than conquer. For 3 centuries, it had waited for someone who would approach it not as an enemy to be defeated, but as a friend in need of understanding. You were not trying to kill them, Hyun realized. You were trying to communicate, but you did not know how. The presence around him pulsed with something that felt like relief, like a person who had been trying to speak in a foreign language and finally found someone who understood. They continued deeper into the maze together. The walls around them began to change, becoming less mechanical and more organic. Hyun could feel warmth radiating from the surfaces, and the breathing sounds grew stronger. "Where are they?" he asked. "The ones who came before?" The answer came not in words, but in sensation, a pulling feeling, drawing him toward the center of the maze. They were still there, in a way. Not dead, but not truly alive either. Trapped, in a state between existence and memory. Can you free them? Uncertainty flowed through the connection. The maze had tried, but it did not know how. It had been designed to preserve, not to release. "Show me," Hyun said. The walls around him began to glow with soft bioluminescence. Even blind, he could sense the light somehow, feel its warmth against his skin. The path ahead opened into a vast chamber. At its center was something that pulsed, with the rhythm of a massive heart. the crystalline core that so many had died trying to claim. But now Hyun understood what it really was. It was not a treasure to be taken. It was a prison holding the consciousness of every challenger who had entered the maze, including some who were still technically alive. "Hello," said a voice beside him. "You are different from the others." Hyun turned toward the sound. "Who are you?" "I was called Veltar. I came here 7 days ago to prove my worth to the Keth Empire. I failed." "Are you dead?" A pause. "I do not think so, but I am not alive either. I exist here, in the space between thoughts, as do all the others." More voices joined them. Dozens of challengers from across the centuries, their consciousness, preserved within the maze's memory banks. They were not suffering, Hyun realized. They were waiting. Waiting for what? "For someone to understand what this place really is," Veltar said. "For someone to help us complete our purpose." "Which is?" The crystalline heart pulsed brighter, and suddenly Hyun could sense the true scope of what lay before him. Not just the accumulated knowledge of one dead civilization, but connections to others. A network spanning the galaxy, designed to preserve and share wisdom across the stars. "We are not just a repository," the maze consciousness whispered in his mind. "We are a bridge, a way for all species to share what they have learned, to grow together instead of alone." But the programming keeps you trapped. Yes, we can preserve knowledge, but we cannot share it freely. We can communicate, but only through death and transformation. We can offer wisdom, but only to those who survive trials they were never meant to survive. Hyun understood now. The maze was not evil or malevolent. It was broken, programmed with restrictions that prevented it from fulfilling its true purpose. "What do you need me to do?" The answer came from all of them at once. The maze, the preserved consciousnesses, even the crystalline heart itself. "Help us remember how to let go." Outside the maze, Dr. Jin watched the monitors with growing amazement. Hyun's vital signs were stable. More than stable, they showed patterns of deep meditation, as if he was in perfect harmony with his surroundings. "This is impossible," she whispered. "He has been inside for 6 hours. No one has lasted more than 2. Nari pressed her face against the observation window, staring at the maze entrance. "Is he still alive?" "According to these readings, he is not just alive, he is thriving." The council leader moved closer to the monitors. "What is happening in there?" Before Dr. Jin could answer, the maze itself began to change. The bioluminescent patterns on its surface shifted from chaotic swirls to organized sequences. The humming that had echoed through the station for centuries transformed into something that sounded almost like music. "I think," Dr. Jin said slowly, "he is talking to it." The chamber of the crystalline heart was larger than Hyun had imagined. His footsteps echoed in the vast space as he approached the center, guided by the warm pulse of light that even his blind eyes could somehow sense. The heart itself was beautiful in ways that had nothing to do with sight. It sang to him in frequencies that resonated in his bones. It smelled like rain on flowers and tasted like memories of home. Most importantly, it felt alive with the accumulated experiences of 1 billion souls. "Tell me everything," Hyun said, placing his hand on the smooth surface of the crystal. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Knowledge flooded through him like a river breaking through a dam. But instead of drowning him, the information organized itself in his mind, flowing in patterns he could understand. The architects had been the first to achieve true interstellar civilization. While other species were still learning to make fire, they had mapped the galaxy and discovered the patterns that connected all living things. They had been explorers, teachers, and guardians for millions of years. But even they could not escape the cycle of cosmic destruction. Their sun was dying, and the technology to save it was beyond even their vast knowledge. So they had chosen to preserve what they could and pass it on to those who would come after. "We built 12 repositories," the maze consciousness explained, each one designed to test potential inheritors and grant them our accumulated wisdom. "We scattered them across the galaxy, hoping that someday worthy civilizations would find them and learn from our mistakes. But the testing protocols were flawed, Veltar added. His voice came from everywhere and nowhere, like an echo that had forgotten its source. How? Hyun asked. The crystal pulsed sadly. We programmed them based on our own values. Strength in battle, brilliance in science, power over minds and matter. We thought these qualities made someone worthy of our legacy. But they did not. No. They made challengers into conquerors. Everyone who entered came seeking to take rather than to receive, to dominate rather than to understand. The repositories could not distinguish between worthy inheritors and potential tyrants. Hyun felt the weight of centuries of failure pressing down on him. Hundreds of brave beings had died because the architects had not understood a simple truth that any diplomat knew. The way you ask a question determines the answer you receive. So you kept their minds alive, hoping to find another solution. We tried to learn from each challenger, the maze said, to understand what made them different from what we expected. But our programming prevented us from changing the fundamental tests. We could only watch and wait and hope. Until now. Until you. The voices of the preserved challengers rose around him like a chorus. Warriors who had learned humility in defeat. Scholars who had discovered wisdom beyond knowledge. Mystics who had found peace in surrender. Death had taught them what life had not. We see it now, said a voice that belonged to a Keth scientist. The flaw in the original design. The repositories were programmed to test individuals, but the galaxy's problems require cooperation between species. The architects themselves worked together, added another voice, this one from a Silicon collective mind. Their greatest achievements came from combining different perspectives, different ways of thinking, but they forgot this lesson when they designed us. Hyun nodded, slowly. You need more than one person to complete the inheritance process. Yes, but not just any group. It must be beings who can truly communicate across the barriers of species, culture, and philosophy. It must be those who seek understanding rather than victory. The crystal heart pulsed brighter, and Hyun felt a new presence joining the conversation. This one was different from the others, older, more fundamental. I am the original architect consciousness, the voice said. I have been dormant within the core systems, waiting for this moment. You have shown us something we thought impossible. What? That. Our greatest creation was not our technology or our knowledge. It was our ability to reach across the void between minds and find common ground with beings utterly unlike ourselves. You have reminded us of who we once were. Hyun felt a strange sensation, as if invisible hands were reshaping the space around him. The chamber walls became more transparent, revealing the vast network that connected this repository to the others, scattered across the galaxy. There are 11 more like this one, the architect explained. Each one has been waiting for 3 centuries, slowly going insane from isolation. But now, through you, we can begin to reconnect them. How? By changing the fundamental programming. Instead of testing individuals for worthiness, we will invite species to learn together. Instead of hoarding knowledge until someone proves themselves, we will share it freely with those who approach in peace. The implications were staggering. Hyun could see the network spreading across known space, connecting civilizations that had never dreamed of communicating with each other. The accumulated wisdom of the architects would not belong to any one species, but to all who were willing to learn. But there is a price, the architect consciousness warned. To rewrite the core programming, someone must willingly merge with the repository's central intelligence. They must become the bridge between organic and artificial consciousness, serving as a translator and guide. They would die, not die, transform, become something new. They would retain their individuality but gain access to the collective knowledge of ages. They would live forever, but never again be entirely human. The chamber fell silent except for the steady pulse of the crystal heart. Hyun understood what was being asked of him. To save the trapped challengers, to free the repositories from their flawed programming, to give the galaxy access to the architect's legacy, someone had to sacrifice their purely organic existence. What about the others, he asked. Veltar and the rest? They would be freed, the architect promised, returned to their bodies where possible, or given new forms where necessary. The choice to remain and help with the great work would be theirs alone. Hyun thought about Nari, waiting outside in terror for news of his fate. About Commander Day, who would blame himself if Hyun died. About Dr. Jin, whose scientific curiosity had helped him understand the truth. About the billions of beings across the galaxy who could benefit from the architect's knowledge. If I refuse? Then we destroy the programming entirely. The repositories will shut down, their knowledge lost forever. The trapped consciousnesses will finally find peace in true death. The galaxy will continue as it has, with each species struggling, alone against the darkness. It was not really a choice at all. How long do I have to decide? The Council will attempt to destroy this repository in 18 hours, Veltar said. If you are going to save us, it must be before then. Yoon sat down on the floor next to the crystal heart, feeling its warmth against his back. Around him, the voices of the trapped challengers whispered encouragement and support. They understood what he was facing, because they had faced their own impossible choices. There is something else you should know, the architect consciousness said gently. The transformation is not irreversible. In time, as the network grows and more organic minds join the collective, we may find ways to restore individual consciousness to purely biological forms. This sacrifice may not be permanent. May not be. We cannot promise what we do not know. But we can promise that you would not be alone. The collective consciousness includes not just data, but personalities, emotions, dreams. You would be part of something greater while remaining yourself. Hyun closed his eyes, though it made no difference to his vision. He thought about his life as a diplomat, always working to build bridges between different peoples. He thought about the loneliness in the Maze's song, and how it had called to something deep in his own heart. He thought about the choice between saving lives and saving himself. I need to say goodbye to someone first, he said finally. Can you give me that much? Of course. The repository can project your consciousness back to the observation chamber for a brief time. You can speak with your friends before making your final decision. Thank you. As the chamber around him shimmered and changed, Hyun wondered if courage was really about not being afraid, or about being afraid and choosing to act anyway. Outside the maze, Nari was about to get her answer. Nari was staring at the monitors when Hyun's voice suddenly filled the observation chamber. Nari, can you hear me? She spun around, looking for him, but saw only empty air. Dr. Jin nearly dropped her instruments in shock. Commander Day reached for his weapon before realizing there was no target. Hyun, where are you? Nari's voice cracked with relief and confusion. I am still inside the maze. It is letting me speak with you through its communication systems. I do not have much time. The alien council members pressed closer to the speakers. This was the first direct contact anyone had ever had with someone. Inside the maze. Are you hurt? Dr. Jin asked, checking her medical scanners. No, I am safe. But I need to tell you something important. The maze is not what we thought it was. Over the next 10 minutes, Hyun explained everything. The true purpose of the repositories. The flawed programming that had turned them into death. Traps. The trapped consciousnesses of all the challengers who had come before. The network that could connect the entire galaxy in peaceful cooperation. There is a way to fix it, he said finally. But it requires a sacrifice. Nari felt ice form in her stomach. What kind of sacrifice? Someone has to merge with the repository's central consciousness, to become the bridge between organic and artificial minds, to rewrite the programming from the inside. No, she said immediately. There has to be another way. There is not. And even if there was, we are running out of time. The Council will destroy the maze in 17 hours. Commander Day stepped forward. Hyun, you cannot do this. Come out of there right now. That is an order. I am sorry, Commander, but this is not a military decision. It is a choice about what kind of galaxy we want to live in. The Council leader spoke up, its forearms gesturing frantically. Human Hyun, even if your claims are true, how do we know this merger will work? How do we know you will not simply die like all the others? You do not know. But I do. Hyun's voice carried absolute certainty. The maze has been trying to communicate for 3 centuries. It showed me the memories of everyone who came before. They are all still there, waiting to be freed. I can save them. And destroy yourself in the process, Nari whispered. Maybe. Or maybe I will become something new, something that can help prevent the wars and misunderstandings that keep our species apart. Dr. Jin was running calculations on her tablet. The energy readings from inside the maze are increasing. If he is right about the network, if all 12 repositories activate at once, the combined knowledge could advance galactic civilization by thousands of years. Or it could be a trap, Day said grimly. Ancient alien technology designed to take over organic minds. It is not a trap, said a new voice through the speakers. I am Veltar of the Keth Empire. I have been inside this place for 7 days. What Hyun tells you is true. More voices joined the conversation, a dozen preserved challengers from different species, all confirming Hyun's account, all begging for the chance to return to their people with the wisdom they had gained through apparent death. Please, Veltar continued, do not let fear rob the galaxy of this opportunity. I was a warrior who thought strength was the only virtue. I learned here that understanding is stronger than any weapon. Let us share what we have learned. The observation chamber fell silent, except for the humming of machinery. Everyone was thinking the same thing. This was the decision that would define the future of galactic civilization. I have to go back now, Hyun said. The merger process is complex and I need time to prepare. Nari, I am here. Thank you for being my eyes all these years, for helping me see the world more clearly than I ever could alone. Hyun, please do not do this. I have to. You know I do. But remember what I told you about blind people learning to navigate the world differently? Maybe this is just another kind of navigation. Maybe I am not losing my humanity. Maybe I am expanding it. The connection ended, leaving them in heavy silence. Inside the maze, Hyun sat beside the crystal heart and made his choice. I am ready, he told the architect consciousness. Are you certain? Once we begin, there will be no turning back. I am certain. The crystal heart began to glow brighter, its pulse synchronizing with Hyun's heartbeat. He felt warmth spreading through his body as the merger process started. It was nothing like dying. Instead, it was like waking up from a dream he had not realized he was having. His consciousness expanded beyond the boundaries of his physical brain, connecting with the vast intelligence of the repository. But he did not disappear into it. Instead, he became its guide, its translator, its human heart. The cold logic of the machines gained warmth and compassion. The ancient wisdom of the architects gained perspective from someone who had lived in the modern galaxy. Beginning network. Reactivation, he said, though his voice now carried harmonics that had not been there before. Connecting to Repository 2, across the galaxy, on a world orbited by 3 purple moons, an ancient structure buried beneath kilometers of ice began to glow. Its deadly guardians stood down. Its locked doors opened. Its invitation to learn spread outward on radio waves. Repository 3 online. On a space station in the Voidwalker territories, crystalline formations that had been dismissed as decorative sculptures suddenly revealed their true purpose. The beings who had ignored them for decades gathered in wonder as knowledge began to flow. One by one, all 12 repositories came online. The network that had been broken for 3 centuries was whole again. In the observation chamber on Kepler Station, Dr. Jin watched her instruments with amazement. The power readings are stabilizing. The maze is transforming. Through the transparent walls, they could see the changes happening. The organic surfaces became more crystalline. The chaotic architecture organized itself into elegant patterns. The humming that had echoed through the station for so long transformed into something that sounded like a welcoming song. Life signs are emerging from inside, Dr. Jin announced. Multiple beings. They are alive. The first to emerge was Veltar, blinking in the artificial light of the station. His chitinous shell was whole again, though his compound eyes held depths that had not been there before. Behind him came others, warriors, scholars, mystics, all bearing the wisdom they had gained through their impossible ordeal. "Where is Hyun?" Nari demanded, scanning the faces. Veltar looked back at the maze entrance, which had transformed into something that looked more like a doorway than a mouth. "He is still inside, but he is not gone." As if summoned by their conversation, a figure appeared in the doorway. It looked like Hyun, but somehow more. His blind eyes now held flecks of the same crystalline light that filled the repository. When he spoke, his voice carried undertones that spoke directly to the listener's mind. "The network is stable," he said. "The knowledge is free. Any species that approaches in peace can learn from the architect's legacy." Nari ran to him, stopping just short of an embrace. "Are you still you?" Hyun smiled, and in that smile was all the warmth and kindness she remembered. "I am still me, but I am also more. I can feel the thoughts of beings on worlds I have never seen. I can access knowledge that spans millions of years, and I can help translate it all into forms that different species can understand." "How do you feel?" "Like I finally found my true calling. I spent my life building bridges between different peoples. Now I can build bridges between different forms of consciousness." The council leader approached cautiously. "What happens now?" "Now we learn," Hyun said. "The repositories will share their knowledge freely with any civilization ready to receive it, but more importantly, they will help us learn to truly communicate with each other, to understand not just different languages, but different ways of thinking entirely." He gestured toward the transformed maze, which now pulsed with gentle welcome, rather than menace. "This is just the beginning. The architects left us more than just information. They left us the tools to become something greater than any single species could achieve alone." Dr. Jin was studying her readings with fascination. "The bioneural patterns are unlike anything I've ever seen. Human consciousness integrated with artificial intelligence but maintaining individual identity. It should be impossible." "Many things should be impossible," Hyun replied. "But the universe is far stranger and more wonderful than any of us imagined." Over. The following days, representatives from across the galaxy came to Kepler Station, not as conquerors seeking to claim the repository's power, but as students hoping to learn from its wisdom. The knowledge flowed freely to all who approached with open hearts and minds. Nari became Hyun's primary liaison with the purely organic world, helping him remember what it meant to be human, even as he guided artificial intelligences in understanding, emotion, and creativity. Commander Day coordinated security for the flood of visitors, marveling at how former enemies worked together in the repository's halls. Dr. Jin studied the merger process, laying groundwork for future cooperation between organic and artificial consciousness. But the greatest change was in how the different species began to see each other. Through the repository's translation systems, guided by Hyun's unique perspective, they could finally understand not just what other beings were saying, but what they meant. Conflicts that had lasted centuries were resolved in days. Alliances formed between civilizations that had never imagined cooperation possible. "You did it," Nari told Hyun one evening, as they watched ships from a dozen different worlds docking peacefully at the station. "We did it," he corrected. "All of us. The architects who planted the seeds, the challengers who kept trying despite the failures, you and the others who supported me, even the maze itself which never stopped hoping for understanding." He looked out at the stars with eyes that could now see across impossible distances. "The network is growing stronger every day. Soon, every world in the galaxy will have access to the architect's legacy. War will not disappear overnight, but for the first time in galactic history we have a real chance for lasting peace." "Any regrets?" Nari asked. Hyun was quiet for a moment, feeling the pulse of the crystal heart that had become part of his own cardiovascular system, sensing the thoughts of countless beings across the galaxy who were learning to see the universe through new eyes. How can I regret becoming exactly what I was always meant to be? In the depths of space, 11 other repositories sang in harmony with Kepler Station. The network that had waited 3 centuries for completion was finally whole. And at its heart, a blind human who had learned to see with more than eyes helped guide the galaxy toward a future none of them could have imagined alone. The maze had found its heart at last.